Right now, I do want to focus on the outrage that we've had over the NBA's handling of their relationship with China and what appears to be some sort of gag order for members of NBA organizations, players, that they're kowtowing almost literally to the communist Chinese state, the authoritarian, murderous state of China, for the sake of money, for the sake of their relationship with Nike and with that market. But people forget exactly how murderous this regime is. I think that's getting lost in the shuffle here. To put some perspective on it is Marion Smith. He is the executive director of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, and he joins us now. And Marion, part of it is because of the great victory over the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, that in some way the evil of communist regimes and dictatorships is not as prevalent in our minds. But boy, we need an education on this, Marion, don't we?
You're exactly right. 30 years ago, we saw the fall of the Berlin Wall, the collapse of communism in Europe, and the dissolution of the Soviet Union a few years later. But also in 1989, in June, we saw the Tiananmen Square massacre, which was a brutal crackdown on the pro-democracy protests in Beijing and around China. And the Communist Party that massacred those unarmed students in Beijing in 1989, and as you mentioned, is responsible for the deaths of at least 50 million people, that's the guilty party, and that's the party that's still in power. And, the People's Republic of China turns 70 years old this month, and that means they have officially outlived the Soviet Union, which fell apart in its 69th year. And the people of Hong Kong, as we've seen these last few months, they do not want to be ruled by the Communist Party, and they never have been. These high schoolers in Hong Kong have grown up in a free city, and they're trying to fight for their future. And I think we need to stand with them, and that's the sentiment that Daryl Morey tweeted, and that's what created this entire NBA crisis.
Yeah, and I'm frustrated when I see basketball stars and people who are paid money to play a sport and sell tennis shoes and the coaches, when they lecture me about my politics here in America and refuse to take a stand against a regime like this. And I want you to hear this. This is Coach Steve Kerr of the Golden State Warriors, who often has many outspoken things to say about this government in the United States of America. He was asked about human rights issues in China. Listen to his response.
Not in step with the United States.
It has not come up in terms of people asking me about it, nor has our record of human rights abuses come up either. But people in China didn't ask me about people owning AR-15s and mowing each other down in a mall. The world is a complex place, and there's more gray than black and white.
He is equating here a deranged, murderous criminal in America buying a gun and killing people with the communist dictatorship of China. And this goes without comment from any of the people in the media. Can you explain why that analogy isn't quite right?
Well, it's absolutely disgusting, I'll say that, for an organization that has claimed the last few years to be a forum for talking about, pressing important issues of justice and dignity. There are perhaps no two starker, more different entities than the United States of America and the Chinese Communist Party. And to present them as morally equivalent represents, a disgusting display of moral equivalence and cowardice. If the NBA is going to do more and more business in China, and under the leadership of Adam Silver, they've made that decision over the last few years, and it has benefited them, by billions of dollars. But if they're going to be a part of Chinese society and become a conduit for propaganda from the Communist Party into the United States, and then pressure American citizens to silence their speech when it comes to subjects that the Communist Party doesn't want talked about in America, and we have to call them out, and there have to be consequences, and that's why our organization has called on Adam Silver to resign. We think there does have to be some consequences for this fallout that we're seeing, because it reveals a pattern of executives in entertainment, sports, and other industries that have decided to do business in China. They are silencing, they're squelching the speech of American citizens when they get a phone call from Beijing.
Let's talk about the NBA Commissioner, Adam Silver. As you just mentioned, your organization, we're speaking with Marion Smith. He's the Executive Director of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. You've called on him to resign. He will say, listen, I don't have a dog in this fight. In fact, he's getting attacked from the Chinese government as well, because he didn't discipline any of the people who have spoken out. The one general manager for the Houston Rockets who did say something, what he said was, listen, in the NBA, they have the right to say whatever they want. I'll just leave it at that. I mean, what's wrong with that position? He seems to be just sort of saying, listen, I'm not taking sides here. Or does he need to step up and take sides?
What happened immediately after Daryl Morey sent out that tweet is the NBA leadership came down on him like a ton of bricks after it was clear he had offended China. And they pressured Daryl Morey. He deleted his tweet. He issued an apology. And Adam Silver got on a plane, went to China to try to manage the fallout and calm them down. A couple days later, he released a statement saying that he was standing for free speech. But I think the actions speak louder than the words here. But even the words of Daryl Morey had to be deleted. I think it is a calculation of the business decision that the NBA, a for-profit entity, has chosen to make. And they have decided, before this crisis, they had decided to be, in their words, a bridge for cross-cultural influence. Players have been talking about that. But it's very clear that's a one-way street. China is influencing us with their totalitarian censure of speech. We are not influencing them. And that goes to the nature of their regime. They can press a button and shut down the NBA. They can press a button and delete South Park from being accessible behind the great firewall of China, as we just saw when a South Park episode, I think it was last week, called out some of these same things in that episode entitled Banned in China. I encourage everyone to watch it.
Yeah. And ultimately, that is what needs to happen, not just people in our pop culture and in sports and in government stepping up and constantly talking about these issues, but we also have to step up, too. If we like our relatively inexpensive electronics or our smartphones or our tennis shoes or our T-shirts, we have to come square with the idea that we are making a deal with the devil here, and we are subsidizing that regime when we continue to do it when we buy these products.
You're exactly right. I mean, there's business, and then there's business. And I don't think anybody who was selling Zyklon B tablets to the Nazis is proud of the buck that they made. And we have to be aware. Department of Commerce has just blacklisted a number of Chinese companies, Hikvision and Dual and a few others, that are responsible for helping the Communist Party erect concentration camps and facial recognition technology cameras on the street corners in Xinjiang province, where we have 1.5 to 3 million Uyghurs in concentration camps, re-education camps, out of a population of 11 million. You had also the company Huawei, which is selling smartphones and building some of the infrastructure for telecommunications in Europe. Their sub-entity is the company that helped build, reportedly, the telecommunications infrastructure in North Korea. So the fact that these companies could be operating in the United States, that American pensioners' money would be invested into those companies to give them the capital to commit these atrocities, we have got to look at this. And I think it's got to fall to the American people because we certainly, as we're seeing, we can't depend on the business leaders in America who are doing business in China to take a stand. But I think there are limits, and I think entities like the NBA, like Apple, like Google, have surpassed those limits. When you have Google participating with the Chinese Communist Party, using American ingenuity and engineers to build algorithms to help the party censor speech in China. That is not what the American free enterprise system was established with blood and treasure to do.
Well said. Marion Smith, thank you for doing what you do there as Executive Director of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation. We have to always remember, since it's still happening on a daily basis on this planet. Thank you, Marion. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Larry.
Larry O'Connor, KABC.